Welcome back to Chin Music, our baseball show at TalkNorth.com. The lineup today, LaVelle Neal III, Star Tribune baseball guru and columnist. I'm Jim Souhan, also from the Star Tribune and TalkNorth.com. We have a lot to get to today. I do want to start with a couple of great conversations LaVelle had this week that if I weren't so locked into Vikings coverage right now, I might have fought you for those, but you got there first. Congratulations on that. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studio.
Scott for Aquarius, your authorized independent Connecticut dealer. What if your water was so amazing you literally bragged to strangers? With Connecticut, enjoy softer skin and hair, dishes and fixtures that shine like the sun, ice that sparkles like diamonds, and worry-free drinking water. All of this, plus 36 months, 0% financing. Schedule your free water analysis at AquariusHomeservices.com. Financing based on credit approval. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended.
Hey, this is Randy Shaver. Along with Kevin Gorg, we host the show Fantasy Huddle on Talk North. Each week, we're going to break down the matchups for the NFL season and try to give you the best chance to win your fantasy football games each and every week. Join us for Fantasy Huddle on Talk North.
And TalkNorth.com is presented by OnX Maps. Thanks also to Minnesota Masonic Charities and Clamshell Beach Resorts. All right, so you had two great conversations this week. You talked to Rocco Baldelli and Paul Molitor. By the way, two former Twins managers, two of my favorite people in the game of baseball, two of the most thoughtful people, to the smartest people you're ever going to meet. So take me through the conversations. Tell me about how's Rocco feeling these days?
Rocco's in pretty good spirits, man. When I talked to him, he's at his house in Rhode Island with his family. You know, he's got the twin sons and daughter and his wife, and they were headed to the beach the next day after talking to him. So, and I was curious. You know, it's funny. I always made a big deal about how, you know, when a manager gets released or fired by a club, they tend not to show their face on campus anymore. The Twins are unique in that because they've got Tom Kelly and Gardy and Paul Molitor, who got to figure out ways to still come to the ballpark. I think Rocco's going to fall into that group with those guys because, you know, they gave him, it was his first manager job. He hasn't forgotten that. He appreciates everything that they've done for him and given them a shot to run the team. And they had some success. They didn't win. And yeah, he said, you're always going to have regrets, especially if you don't win the title. But, you know, the things that happened over the 7 years outweighed that. He enjoyed working with the people he was working with. He enjoyed working with Falvey. He considers him a friend. And, you know, he's going into this period, you know, comfortable and to sit out for a while before he gets back into either coaching or managing again. Some teams did reach out. Some teams with vacancies did reach out to him after he was dismissed, and he told him that he wasn't ready, you know, to jump right back in. He wanted to be a father for a while and spend time with his family. It also helps that since the Twins picked up his option for 2026, he's getting paid, so he can afford to kind of sit on the sidelines. But I think Rocco's got enough support around the league and enough friends and associates and contacts around the league that whenever he's ready to get back in, he shouldn't have a problem.
So just so everybody knows, I am in Los Angeles covering the Vikings. LaVelle is out doing soccer stuff. So you're kind of catching us in transition today. So the sound quality might not be up to the norms. We appreciate you dealing with it. I have a lot of things I really want to talk to LaVelle about this week. So we're going to just kind of muddle through here. You know, a couple things. You know, like my communications with Rocco and people close to Rocco, I did get the sense that, okay, nobody wants to be fired, but I got the sense that Rocco could use a break.
I was just saying that I think if you got Rocco in private, he probably would have acknowledged that the last 2 years were really tough on him.
Yep.
In terms of what he had to work with, you know, not adding after 2023. Actually, I'm sorry, cutting the pair off to 2023. Yep. And then what went on which transpired this year with, you know, being determined not to have the collapse that they did at the end of 2024, that not working out, having that brief winning streak and then just collapsing, leading to the sell-off at the trade deadline. You know, it takes a toll on someone, especially when, you know, you thought you had the pieces in place to have at least a good team. On paper, the Twins look like a team that could win the division. So, I bet you it wore down on him. And if he had hair on his head, it'd probably be all gray by now. Yeah, maybe he is viewing this as a well-timed, a good time to kind of just sit on the sidelines and observe and recharge his batteries and watch his kids grow up. I agree with that.
Yeah. And the other thing is that, sports lure us into this emotional environment where you're happy for these guys or women who succeed. You're happy for these people. You're sad when this person gets fired. You're sad when this person loses. The other thing is Rocco's, he managed for whatever, 7 years in the major leagues. He made pretty good money. He made pretty good money. He networked. He has a great reputation around the game, and he'll be able to get back into the game in a lot of different ways if he wants to. So I didn't like him being fired, but we also don't need to sit around feeling sorry for Rocco Baldelli. He's going to be just fine.
Yeah, after talking with Rocco, I can just tell he's in the right headspace, and he's pretty comfortable in the situation he's in right now. He's at home in Rhode Island with his family, his 3 kids and his wife. And I think they're headed to the beach the next day. After I talked to him on Monday, I think they're headed to the beach on Tuesday. So he's all into the father thing now. And I think he's got enough credibility around the game. He's got enough friends around the game where if he wants to get back in, it shouldn't be too difficult. It helps that the Twins picked up his option for 2026. So he's getting paid next year while he's doing nothing but being a father. So I think he's grateful for the opportunity he got to be a manager. He enjoyed working with a lot of people in the Twins organization that he still has feelings for. And it's funny. I think I wrote a column about this a year ago about how, Tom Kelly, Ron Gardenhire, and Paul Molitor still hanging around the Twins organization in different capacities, despite being fired by the Twins. And I think Rocco's going to join him because he says he's become a Twins fan now. So, good for him. It's good that he's in a good mood. No bitterness, no axe to grind, nothing vindictive about how he's going to proceed going forward. So good for Rock.
Yeah, not surprised. All right, let's get to your conversation with Paul Molitor. I'll tell you about the 93 series that I covered when Paul Molitor was the World Series MVP. First, I want to tell you about Onyx Hunt. Have you ever driven past a piece of land and wondered who owns that? Or maybe you need to know exactly where a property line runs. That's where Onyx Hunt comes in, and it's not just for hunters. There are folks using Onyx for their jobs every day throughout the country, from farmers and ranchers mapping out their fields, wildland firefighters navigating rough terrain, to construction workers needing to know who owns what property. This app offers something for everyone. If you need the best land ownership maps, aerial imagery, and property boundaries in your pocket, Onyx Hunt is the tool for the job. Try it free for 7 days. Download Onyx Hunt in the app or Google Play Store, or visit onyxmaps.com/hunt to get started. So, first World Series I ever covered, Toronto, Philadelphia. Crazy, wild series. Go back and look at the box scores of those games. I think one of the games was like 13-11 in a rainstorm. It was amazing. Mm-hmm. 2 great offensive teams. And I loved spending time. I like Philadelphia, but I loved spending time in Toronto. Ended up making some real friends in the Blue Jays staff and got to know Molitor a little bit during that time. And that was right before he right before he came to Minnesota. And watching him hit good pitching in the clutch was an amazing thing. And everybody remembers the Joe Carter home run, but Molitor was the best player in that series. So you called Paul Molitor to talk about the Blue Jays being back in the World Series for the first time since 1993. What'd you hear?
Oh, it was awesome. Just talking to Molly and his ability to articulate his thoughts and to describe scenes. It's brilliant. It's always great to have a conversation with him about the game. And, I just asked him, what were your thoughts? And the first thing out of his mouth was, when I saw George Springer run to first base, it looked eerily similar to Joe Carter. I said, really? Mm-hmm. So after I got done with the interview, I called up both videos, and you could see how they were both kind of bouncing down the first baseline while the ball was sailing into the seats. And then, they slapped hands with the first base coach and started celebrating. So, just a great, and, the fact that Molitor, had singled to center right before that at bat, he was in the middle of it all. Because he was on first and Ricky Henderson was on second when Carter hit that pitch from Mitch Williams, Mr. Wow thing. I remember that series, watching that series. I remember shots of Curt Schilling sitting in a dugout, covering his face because he couldn't bear to watch Mitch Williams throw,
Yep.
because he was just worried that disaster was coming. But Molitor talking about the celebration and people still out on Young Street at 2 a.m. Celebrating. And I sure meant a lot to him because he had finally won the World Series at 37 after trying for years to be in the right situations. And he had spent the day, we talked on Wednesday, he had spent the day on like 2 or 3 Toronto radio stations already, talking about the moment. He wasn't sure if he was going to be summoned to Toronto for any of the games.
He's got to be.
That's what I was thinking. He deferred to Cito, and he deferred to Joe Carter, of course. And he also said Robbie Alomar needs to appear, but Robbie's kind of gone in hiding in recent years. And he already threw out the first pitch in Game 5 between the Brewers and the Cubs. So, but I would imagine they would just want him to come, because if there was the Twins, they would have all their alumni hanging out somewhere around the stadium during the game in different suites, maybe floating through the press box and the radio booths and the TV booths during interviews. I'm sure Toronto probably wants to do the same thing because this is the first time they've been to the World Series since 93. Yes. And they're going to be in a noteworthy World Series, too, because there wasn't a World Series in 1994 because of labor issues.
Right.
So they were like the reigning champions for a couple years. And the other thing with that, I tried to get a hold of Jack Morris. Jack Morris never calls me back. He calls me last night hours after the story's already posted. I know. So we just chatted for a few minutes. He felt the same way that Molitor felt, that the Blue Jays hitters are better than Milwaukee's, and they'll take better at bats against the Dodgers pitching staff. And they may be able to get into that bullpen earlier and stop, because, Blake Snell and Yamamoto, what they did to the Brewers was ridiculous, going 8 and 9 innings each. But they both think that the way the Blue Jays are hitting, and the way they take at bats and extend at bats, that they have a shot. They get into that bullpen where that's probably the weakest part of the Dodgers. Everything from
the bullpen is weak.
Exactly. And Suzuki has been like, he was installed as their closer kind of late. He's working out okay, but he's not perfect either. So we'll see. But it was great talking to Jack, because Jack, that was Jack's third consecutive World Series, because he won in 91 with the Twins, went to Toronto, won in 92, and then he was on the 93 team, but he was injured. He wasn't on the postseason roster, but he still got a ring. So he was on a roll then. So it was just cool about the local angles that were in play with Springer's 3-run blast and getting Toronto back into the World Series.
It was an amazing thing for St. Paul that Jack Morris and Dave Winfield win the World Series in 92, Toronto's first ever World Series championship. Then basically Molitor replaces Winfield in 93 and they win it again. It's just an amazing time for St. Paul baseball. And it was just a blast to cover. I love Toronto. I loved that series. I loved covering Molitor for all the reasons you just, enumerated. The fact that he just knows how to tell a story, knows how to set a scene like very few athletes. So that's such cool stuff. I'm so glad you got a hold. I'm glad you got a hold of Morris too. He's man, when Jack has something to say, he's very good at saying it.
Yeah, he is. But once he got elected to the Hall of Fame, he was like, I don't need to call you back anymore, LaVelle.
Oh, that's so Jack.
He's laughing while he's saying that, but he's probably right, though. He was like, up until then, he needed his quotes out there. So good for him. I guess he's laying low right now. I think he still lives in Grant. So, it was good to, I said, I told him, I said, Jack, I'll try to not need you in the future, but just stay on your toes. I may have to call you one day.
Yeah, he can spend 5 minutes on the phone with us. It's okay. Let's get to a very quick World Series preview. We're going to talk about where the manager search stands. We'll do our Booze and Blues segment. We'll be back with Roy Smalley joining us next week to talk more about the World Series. Right now, we want to thank Minnesota Masonic Charities.
Today, I want to talk a little bit about the Minnesota Masonic Charities. When you think about the Masons, I get it. You think about the funny hats, those pancake breakfasts, which are phenomenal. My dear friend John Schweitz and I have chatted about this, and it's so much more than that. They've got the Masonic home over in Bloomington. They've got the hospital for the children over at the U of M. They are the largest fraternal organization in terms of charitable needs in our country, and they deserve a ton of recognition. So thank you, Minnesota Masonic Charities, for all you do and for supporting us over here at Talk North, and a special thanks to my good friend, John Schweitz.
And here's Talk North star Michael Russo for Clamshell Beach Resorts.
Hey, have you been dreaming of a lake cabin lifestyle with boating, fishing, and family fun in northern Minnesota? Well, lately I've thought a lot about how cool it would be to have a getaway like so many Minnesotans. And if you're like me, you probably think that owning your own lakeside getaway is beyond your budget. Well, if you think lake cabin real estate prices keep going up, well, think again. This is Russo, and I'm here to tell you there is an affordable way to enjoy a cabin lifestyle and all that goes with it. And yes, I said affordable. I founded a Clamshell Beach Resort, which is located on the Whitefish chain of 14 lakes for you and your family to enjoy. Here's how. Clamshell has lake homes that offer deeded fractional ownership, and the keywords there are deeded and fractional. You own it. Imagine having 5 weeks a year to enjoy Clamshell with its beaches, pool, and lodge that's full of kids' activities. Is golf your game? There's a great golf course right across the road. Like winter sports? Well, you can go ice fishing, cross-country skiing, or snowmobiling right out the door at Clamshell. And there's no maintenance, no grass mowing, no snow removal. It's done all for you. And you can own a share of Clamshell Beach Resort at an affordable price. To learn more about ownership opportunities at Clamshell Beach Resort, go to cottagesonwhitefish.com or contact Pat Egan at 612-220-9819. That's cottagesonwhitefish.com or Pat Egan at 612-220-9819. All
right, I don't want to spend a lot of time on the World Series preview, but I do, for all the reasons we just mentioned, I think the Jays have a real chance here. Obviously, the Dodgers have the star power. They have Ohtani, who's a unicorn, but I just have a feeling that Toronto's hitting approach with former Twins hitting coach David Popkins has a real chance to get into the bullpen and do some damage.
I think so too. And it's not just like the key hitters in the Blue Jays lineup; it's the entire lineup. I mean, the bottom three hitters, have done a good job of making things interesting and getting on base and extending innings for the top of the order. Alejandro Kirk, you look at him like, there's no way this guy can hit a baseball, but he figures out a way.
He can hit,
to be productive. So, I actually enjoyed watching the Blue Jays on offense. You think they're going to do something every time they come to the plate, and Dave Roberts knows that. I think Dave Roberts is going into this going, I got to ride my starters. And they're healthy now because, Glasnow's back there. They'll go with Snell and Yamamoto and Ohtani, who he's just a unicorn. It's just amazing what he's doing right now. But I think there's a series right there. If the Blue Jays have the ability to make it difficult for that Dodgers pitching staff. And plus, offensively, the Dodgers haven't been at full throttle yet. They basically beat the Brewers because of the starting rotation held the Brewers to 2 earned runs in 28 and 2/3 innings. Mookie hasn't been that dangerous. Freeman's been okay. Will Smith's been good. I have to admit that. But some of the other guys really haven't taken off in the postseason. So if Toronto could punch him in the mouth early, I think it will say a lot for this series.
Agreed. All right. Anything new on the manager search? Feels to me, LaVelle, like Rowson and Vasquez are kind of the leading candidates, with Shelton kind of right in that, kind of just on the outside. But you've been covering it more closely than me. What do you think? Yeah,
since we last talked, I discovered that Scott Service and Vance Wilson have been thrown into the mix. And Service makes it interesting because he's been a manager before. He was managing the Mariners, and he ended up getting fired. That one year they were 10 games over 500, and I believe they were in first place, and they collapsed. And he was the fall guy for the collapse. So the Twins fans know what that's like. What's it like to see that happen? If he wants to get back into managing, and he's willing to come to Minnesota, given the parameters in which they're going to operate under for the next 2 or 3 years, then I would give him serious consideration. I still have James Rowson up there first. And I would have Shelty second. Another thing with Shelty, because he knows this organization, and the Twins know that if he wants to get back in the game, and he's got managing experience, and hopefully he can be great for the young players. So I think that's the one thing they got to look at too. Which one of these candidates do they believe can say the right things and get the younger players to develop? And let's face it, by the end of next season, we'll have seen Emmanuel.
Yeah, I'm
Culpepper, and
yeah, I was gonna say, go ahead. I'm sorry, we're talking over each other. Culpepper, but this is a grotesque oversimplification, but I'm going to use it anyway. They need somebody who's going to help Royce Lewis be a superstar instead of a bust, because that is a major tipping point for this organization. He might be superstar number 3 hitter who carries the franchise, or he might be, somebody who's a spring training invite for somebody else in 2 years.
That's a damn good point, man. He is the poster child for what's going on with the Twins right now, isn't he? He came in with so much fanfare, and he was so spectacular a couple of years ago with the Grand Slams. And that's where the whole psychology part comes into play. What's going through Royce's head right now, because he's had to deal with now 2 seasons in which he hasn't been that guy. And this was a guy in 2023 was running off the field after hitting Grand Slam, screaming to everybody, "I'm him, I'm him, I'm him," doing the Pat Mahomes bit. And right now he ain't him.
Yeah.
So getting him back to that level is probably the most important thing for this organization, because they thought he was going to be a superstar in making. He was charismatic. You compared his charisma to that of Kirby Puckett's.
Yep.
And fixing him is number one. So yeah, if I'm hoping that the Pohlad family and whoever's doing the interviews had that on their list of questions. What do you see out of Royce Lewis, and what can you do to get him to be all he could be as a player? That should have been one of the questions during the interview sessions. I hope it was.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, we will get back to more baseball stuff, more managerial searches, all that stuff next week when Roy joins us. Right now, let's do our Booze and Blues segment. I'll start. I'm a Springsteen guy. I'm not going to belabor it. I try not to talk about it much here. There's so many great artists out there and so many undiscovered artists out there. We tend to go in that direction. But I will say the new movie, Deliver Me From Nowhere, is coming out. I haven't seen it yet. Why I'm intrigued by it, I will tell you that. Springsteen had finally kind of broken through with The River. Double album, sold billions of copies, had incredibly popular worldwide tour. He'd kind of gone from his career being very shaky to really being a superstar. And at that point in his history, he sits in this room that he was renting and with a 4-track tape and records a depressing album called Nebraska with just his voice, acoustic guitar, harmonica. Does the most lo-fi recording you can do back when nobody was doing this. Nobody's doing their own music. You had to have a record deal. You had to have the studio production to get a record made. Fights with his record company to get it made. Gets produced. It's probably might be his greatest achievement. It's not the easiest or most fun album to listen to, but in terms of the artistic ability, the reach, the storytelling, the bravery to do this, when it was absolutely anti-commercial. I love the fact they picked that point in his history to highlight, because that really tells the story of him. I mean, everybody wants to have hits. Everybody wants to have sold out concerts and all that, but they kind of hit the most artistic point of his entire career. And that's why I eventually will go to it, even though I don't really like going to these kinds of movies. I'm
fascinated by the movie. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm still kicking myself because I haven't gone seen I never saw the Dylan movie either. So those are two I have to go see. I didn't even know there was one in production on Bruce Springsteen, but having gone to college in the early '80s, he was like part of my soundtrack. Because Born in the USA came out right about that time.
Well, the interesting thing is that Nebraska. He was recording tracks that he thought were going to be on Born in the USA, and he recorded Born in the USA as a really kind of depressing acoustic song when he was doing Nebraska. And then he was getting all these songs down because studio time was so important, so expensive. And he wanted to have basically kind of outlines of the songs that his band could play once they got in the studio. And then he realized this isn't a commercial. The songs I've just written here are not commercial. I need to just put them out the way they are and just get them on vinyl and just let them be whatever they are, even though it's completely unpopular. And then he had, Born in the USA, and some of the songs he wrote for that ended up being Born in the USA with full band and full rock treatment later. And that was his most popular album of all time.
Right. He's an American icon, man. And it's funny when we start the show talking about Paul Molitor, and now we're talking about
and Paul's the biggest Springsteen fan I know.
Exactly. I mean, Paul's gone all over the world to watch Springsteen perform. I still remember a night that him in spring training, it was Molitor, Coomer, and Steinbach, and they rented a limo and rolled up to Tampa to listen to Springsteen.
I went with a former Twins employee to that concert.
Oh, wow. Yeah, and I remember they came back to the infamous Potts Sports Cafe after the concert, and we're singing his songs and playing more songs on the jukebox, and it was great. And you see how much Springsteen means to everybody, you know. And thanks to because of Molitor, I actually said hello to Bruce Springsteen because the Twins were in New York playing the Yankees. It was Sunday morning, and Springsteen was in town for some reason, and he brought his little kid because he wanted him to.
Well, he lives in North Jersey, so it's not a hard trip for him.
Right. That's true. That's right. And so then, so I'm walking into the Twins clubhouse. I'm sorry. And there's Molitor outside the dugout clubhouse entrance. I don't know why I got clubhouse and dugout mixed up. In the clubhouse entrance, he's talking to Springsteen and a little kid. And he's like, "LaVelle, this is Bruce Springsteen." He said, "Hi, how you doing?" And I walk in, you know, and I'm all cool about it. But I get inside the clubhouse, I'm like, "Holy shit, that was Bruce Springsteen!"
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And so, he had that effect on someone. You know, a kid who grew up on the south side of Chicago, growing up listening to R&B. I didn't know who the hell Bruce Springsteen was till 1982. I sure learned a lot about him since then.
So how about this? Molitor is Twins coach in 1999-2000, right? Somehow, Springsteen ends up playing everywhere Molitor is around the country. He played in Tampa and in Fort Lauderdale, 3 concerts total. Paul went to all 3. I went to all 3. He played twice in Minneapolis. I went to both. Molitor went to both. And then he played in Kansas City when the Twins were in Kansas City. And Molitor took the entire coaching staff to that one. And I still remember walking into the team hotel. I didn't always stay at the team hotel. On this time I did. Walking into the team hotel after that concert, and all the coaches are at the bar, and Rick Stelmazis going, "How the bleep does he do it? How does he do it every night?" It just blown away. And also, and you know, culturally, Springsteen used to kiss Clarence Clemens on the lips during shows just to make a point. And that's another thing I will always love about him.
I didn't know that.
Yep. They would chase each other around, and he would end up kissing Clarence, just like, "Hey, any racists in the audience, this is for you."
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's absolutely beautiful. I wonder, where did he play in Kansas City? Was it outdoors or indoors?
No, it was whatever their arena is. I can't remember what it was.
Kemper Arena at the time. They had Kemper Arena down
Kemper
there.
Arena. Yep.
Okay. Yep. Okay.
So, last note, if you like Springsteen, check out Live in New York City. You can rent it for like $2-3, a bunch of different places. If you like New Orleans style music, check out his Live in Dublin album, where he played with the Dixieland band that he put together. And if you like 1970s Madison Square Garden style Springsteen, check out the No Nukes concert that they just released, and you'll see quite a lot of energy. All right.
Can't wait.
Good stuff, LaVelle. Appreciate it. We'll talk next week.
Take care.